Resiliency. In this age wherein digital transformation is reshaping every facet of our lives, the security of civil aviation system stands as a cornerstone for both operational efficiency and public safety. This panel discussion, we delve into the complex interplay of security, privacy, and resilience within aviation sector. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists who bring the wealth of expertise on this discussion. I would like to request them to please come on stage. Our moderator, I'm honored to introduce Air Marshal B.R. Krishna, former Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, a distinguished fighter pilot with nearly 5,000 flying hours experience and 38 years of service in Indian Air Force. His extensive experience includes commanding a front line squadron, leading Air Force Test Pilot School, and serving as the Senior Air Staff Officer of Southwestern Air Command. His insights will bring invaluable discussions today. So big round of applause to him. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Jacxine Fernandez, VP of Information Security at Bangalore International Airport. Jacxine brings a deep understanding of the cybersecurity challenges faced by major international airports and will offer valuable perspectives on protection critical infrastructure. He is a risk management, information security, and business continuity professional with experience in managing risk and security operations and business continuity within complex working environments. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Joyce Rodriguez, Head of Cybersecurity Airbus India. Joyce's expertise in aerospace cybersecurity will illuminate the intersection of advanced technology and threat mitigation strategies. She is a technology leader with global experience in cybersecurity, delivering in digital solutions, leading technology transformations for large enterprise in various management consulting and delivery leadership roles across industries. Next, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Suresh Padmanabhan, Associate Director at Collins Aerospace, where he leads digital transformation and heads the Center of Excellence for Data Analytics. With over 30 years of aerospace experience and background in AI, data analytics, and electronic warfare, Dr. Padmanabhan has extensive expertise in developing data-driven solutions for avionics and autonomy. He is IIT alumnus and has authored numerous papers on advanced technologies. Now I would like to invite Air Marshal Krishna sir to please take it from here.
Good evening and thank you. I think civil aviation is a very important critical infrastructure, and I know a lot of people are waiting to catch the flight in the evening. I hope there's no disruption, especially because we're exceeding the time in this case. And we will try and keep it a little short and sweet to cater for those people who have to rush to the airport, and Bangalore traffic is more disruptive than the civil aviation. So, so without further ado, what I'll do is we have a different format. I will be posing questions to the panelists. They will answer, they'll give their views on that, and maybe others can join in after that. Once we have finished about 5 or 6 questions, we'll open the floor for anyone to ask questions to any other panelist. I think that is the format we are going to follow. So I'll take on let me now get into the act. Our friend has already introduced all the participants, so that gives us a little more time. The first question I will now give to my friend Fernandez. Jacxine Fernandez. So here, what I would like to ask him is about how can the civil aviation industry balance the need for robust security measures with the need to protect passenger privacy, particularly in the context of biometric data collection and surveillance. Here, I will just like to add, I remember about 2019 or sometime, I got an email from Air India, your data has leaked. So I was wondering what will happen now. So we didn't take any action. But today when you look at breaches, people go to the court because of the Privacy Act which is there, and they seek a lot of compensation for that. So the challenge is going to be huge, and passenger data, it not only includes their name, their flight details, their passport details, maybe the credit card details. There'll be so much of data which is actually goes away into maybe the dark web. So this is a major challenge. So I would request you to please update us as to what we are doing in our country.
Thank you, sir, for and thank you, Bhupesh, for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. I think as consumers, we are a very greedy lot. We want safety, security, privacy, all of it. It's like the triangle on, speed, quality, and cost. If you want two of them, third one suffers, kind of thing. So I think it's an interplay. There has to be a fine balance for it, because the needs for national security is very high, in the sense that I give an example of today when you go into the airport, and one of the things that people do complain about is the time they take at a security check. The CISF who frisks them, who is doing the job to make sure that only the right people and not the wrong kind of people are boarding flights. Now tomorrow, if for whatever reasons, we completely do away with that, would you be confident climbing on boarding a flight? Would you be as confident to take that step? Most likely people will have questions. Though it's not also, and in spite of the security being there, sometimes it's about the perception of security. I don't know if now today everybody has joined us at the Conrad Hotel. Have you seen the security check outside that the guards do for the cars that come in? Do you really think that's going to stop a very determined attacker from getting in and doing something? So there it is about the perception of security as to what is being done. So from an interplay between what is security needed for civil aviation, I'm going to talk from the perspective of an airport operator and not necessarily from an airline perspective. The idea is that we have to balance that need. Now, one of the most revolutionary programs that digital transformations that our country has gone through, and it has been quite unique to India also, is the DigiYatra program. Now, rightfully so, all of these passengers and all of these travelers have expressed a concern around, how are you holding my data? How safe is it? How secure is it? And this is an ecosystem that holds this data. We do as an airport operator for 24 hours, after which we are mandated by the government entities to purge that data. And we have to demonstrate that, which we do. So this is about assuring privacy to you as to how it is. But there is always going to be a trade-off that the traveler, the user, the consumer also does. I was party to a discussion earlier today in the morning, and I was on the audience, and they said, our privacy is a fundamental right. Unfortunately, we have sold that for 5% discount with Shopper Stop and Reliance Jio or whatever outlet we go to. We give it away very freely, very openly. So that is where we have to introspect ourselves also and say, what are we doing to protect our data? Not only what is the government doing to protect the data, what are the organizations doing, what are we doing? Every time they ask you for a mobile number, a name to punch it into an invoice, you're giving away that data. So from that perspective, what is the balance that has to be achieved? I think in civil aviation, it is a balance between national security when we have to allow a passenger to board on a flight versus what that passenger wants to keep as private with them. And to this extent, a great deal of it is with the airline, I would say. Airport operators, unless you are on our app, we don't keep your passenger data to a great extent.
Thank you for that nice update which you gave us. So I will take on the second question. I would request Joyce to take it on. So here I would like to know about what are the potential vulnerabilities in the aviation supply chain, which include maybe software, firmware vulnerabilities, and that adversaries would like to exploit, and how can the industry work to mitigate this? The last session was about supply chain, but probably you can add from the airline production point of view as to how do you handle that?
Thank you for the question, sir, and very good evening to everyone. I'll take that supply chain maybe in two parts, right? So if you look at the whole civil aviation itself, there are different sectors even within that, right? So there are aircraft manufacturers and providers of components for the aircraft systems itself. There is the airports, there are airlines, and then, the wider range of service providers who provide various services to each one of these. So that itself is a big ecosystem to deal with. So imagine the supply chain associated with, this kind of a large ecosystem. Now, talking about vulnerabilities, it'll be incomplete without understanding threats for it, right? So, um, for me, instead of talking about the top 10 vulnerabilities, which, I'm sure there are many reference sources and everything that, you know, reports that come out for us to frequently look at. But it's also important to look at it from a threat perspective. And when we talk about this sector, right, and similar sectors as well, one, the interconnectedness of the sector, in terms of the dependencies, the data flows that happens between different systems, etc., the limited set of supply chain, catering to the same sector itself, that part of it, and also part of this sector also becoming part of, national infrastructure or critical infrastructure. So we'll have to understand how the threats are to this particular sector. Who are the most popular threat actors? What are their attack vectors? And then look at those vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities, could be system level, could be, application, software level. It could start with, an independent application or a large enterprise application could be used. The motives could be different here as well. Unlike a large volume of cyber attacks that we tend to see in smaller scales and everything, which could be the main motive there could be money, data theft. It's also related to money to, to be able to sell money. In this sector, the motives could rise beyond that as well. The motives could be, a threat to national security, corporate espionage, hacktivism as well. So we can look at different forms of threats over here, what actors are the more popular ones, and especially those who, in some of these sectors, the actors are very popular ones, they target industries as such. So you'll also know them, and then when you learn their tactics and what vulnerabilities they typically exploit, I think that's the ones for us to prioritize actually. What's important here is for us to understand the interconnectedness of systems. And then, we can't say that, as a standalone, when we look at a one firmware vulnerability, that could not be a, critical one as we see it. But then imagine if that particular firmware is used across in the entire supply chain, then imagine the damage it can cause and if that is exploited. And hence, before we narrow down to our top vulnerabilities, I think it's very important to understand this interconnectedness and then look at threats, and definitely the threat vectors and the actors, and then study, which vulnerabilities could potentially be the top ones. Instead of going down to one specific application software, right, I would say it's important to look at it more holistically.
Thank you for that. And now I would go to Suresh. Suresh, I think you are into aviation business, and I would like to know that as aviation systems become increasingly interconnected, as we all know and we're talking about it, the potential of cyber physical threats to the aircraft, the airport system, air traffic management, these threats are growing significantly. And these threats can impact safety, security, and operational efficiency. So how can the industry prevent and respond to these incidents?
Thanks for that question, sir. First of all, I must admit it's very difficult for me to come out with something new because I'm speaking at the fag end of this panel discussion, and after so many luminaries have already spoken. I'll try and give a little bit of different perspective to what we are discussing out here today. We all agree, when IoT came into as a concept, as a technology, we started talking about smart things. Internet of Things. How do you become smart? By getting connected to each other. We are getting smarter today by talking to each other, by networking. And that's how systems started getting connected to each other and becoming smarter. But then every good thing has a pitfall to it which needs to be addressed. Today we are talking about a total connected ecosystem, right from passenger check-in, the airport, the air traffic management, the landside, airside operations, a connected aircraft, and of course, so we talk about connected galley system, we talk about connected seats, we talk about, when you fly, you want internet to be seamlessly available. When you fly from, say, Bangalore to Chicago, you want seamless internet connectivity. So with all this, there are obviously a lot of vulnerable areas. I fly a lot, you fly a lot, our families fly a lot. So it's extremely important that we secure aviation and we see to it that, you know, we don't have vulnerabilities. And how do we see to it? By ensuring that we have trusted systems. When 9/11 happened, it was spoken about, we didn't have ADSB mandatory over US airspace. The reaction was today we have an ADSB which is ADSB out, which is actually a mandatory requirement, a compliance almost all over the globe and especially over the US. So that was a reactionary measure which did come in. I've been involved, I'm not getting into specifics of projects. We all know on board we have flight management system. Today we are looking at flight management system as a service. We want to take real-time decisions of a flight management system on board with inputs from the backend cloud. So essentially what's happening is, today you have an aircraft which is nothing but a computer which is always connected to a data center and it's flying. So that makes the onus of us to have vulnerabilities plugged at each and every stage. We all have heard about ACARs and CPDLC, where we talk about communication from the aircraft to the airlines and to the air traffic management backbone. They're all unencrypted. What actually saves the day is the human in the cockpit, the pilot in the cockpit who takes the final decision. We've talked about AI a lot in the last couple of hours. What if I am flying the plane and the AI system tells me turn left, but my intuition tells me turn right? What do I do? So certification of AI systems is not as easy as it's going to be. There are a lot of challenges. Vulnerabilities have to be plugged. We need to be ahead as a society to catch and embrace technology. Somebody asked me some time ago, what's IT? Everybody knows it's information technology, but I would say it's India today. It's great that we have this forum, and I've been interacting with many other forums, IEEE, SAE, Aerocon conferences, where there is definitely a big drive, but we've taken a big baby step, like Air Marshal Khosla and Air Marshal Baduria did make a mention. We've already lost a lot. We have really already lagging a lot. China and many Western powers are way ahead of us, but we need to come up and catch up in this race. All of us have got smartphones with us. I'm sure I can tell with confidence, none of us are holding a smartphone which is more than 5 years old. Anybody holding a smartphone in their hand which is more than 5 years old? Impossible. We are having Apple iPhone 16 releasing day after tomorrow. Many of us are going to go and buy it. But when we come to aerospace, whether it is a military or the civil aviation, we fly aeroplanes, we use radars which are 40 to 60 years. Kudos to the engineers, to the designers, to the operators, to the pilots who operate, maintain these in viable, potent condition across decades. When I fly an Airbus 380, I use the infotainment, I get a map display, I get a superior, I watch the latest Tom Cruise movie, we are very happy. But do you realize that infotainment system is being run by a Pentium 386? That is the kind of legacy electronics and hardware and software that we are using. We are using software, we are using hardware, we are using actuators designed 50 years ago and flying today in 2024. So that is the kind of, difficulty which we do look at. And we've talked a lot about connectivity, internet, network layer security, software application security, great. But there's one other element where there's a lot of research which is happening, which is security at hardware. When the internet came up, it was basically an open architecture. Security was built over it. Today, we are going beyond the realm of software security and network security. There's an active research which is going on hardware security. How do I know that the chip that I put on my processor, on my mission computer, on my system, on my avionics head-up display or head-on display is the actual chip that I designed? That's a huge thing. World over, US makes the design of the chip. It is manufactured in Taiwan and China. How do I know that the design that I made is the chip that I actually got from the manufacturer? So there are a lot of areas, we are all awakening, we are all making a lot of progress, but I think collectively, think tanks like what we have today here and the collective effort of these and many more councils, we are really going to catch up and ensure that aviation is safe, both in the military space as well as in the civil aviation sector, because losing a war, you don't have to lose it in the battlefield, you can lose it in the economic field, you can lose it in the civil aviation field as well. So all of us have to be alert, and I'm sure the present generation will take it forward much better than what we have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. I think moving on, I think we all know how the breaches takes place, cybersecurity. So how do we prepare for it? So I will come to what is known as adversary emulation. So here's a question for the panelists. Anybody could take it on and add on to it later. Can you share examples of how adversary emulation has been used in aviation industry to test our security controls and incident response plans, and what insights have been gained from these exercises?
Thank you, sir. Adversary emulation, and again, cybersecurity, I think, has the ignominy of coming up with new terms every time we decide to have a get-together. So, adversary emulation, red team assessment, we can call it by very many different names. But having said that, from an airport perspective, a couple of things come out. See, because like I mentioned earlier, we do not hold data per se, which could be of, I mean, when you hear about breaches worldwide, you're talking about, you know, PII information that has been leaked and probably can be used to develop fake identities, which can then be used for committing either crime or fraud or any of those things. So very little of that is held by us, so it doesn't make it attractive. But what makes like Joyce mentioned, you know, if you're a national asset like an airport is, no matter where it is, what makes it attractive for this thing? If you shut down operations, can I extort money from you? So if I shut down the operations of an airport, flights are not able to take off and everything, which inconveniences a lot of people. And not only that, it is a national embarrassment, to be honest. So that are the kind. And secondly, you know, the other aspect of it could be, could I tamper with systems which allows people, undesirables or those with malicious intent to go from to leave from the airport. These are most of what we worry from a, let's say, adversary emulation perspective, which are specific to the airports, I would say. Other than that, of course, there are the normal channels of adversary emulation that we do worry about, which is, I think, common for enterprises, irrespective of whether you're an airport or not. You know, trying to compromise you through a business email compromise, trying to get money out of fraud, you know, trying to see if they can ransomware you out. So those are the usual stuff, which we anyways do. But then some of the more nuanced red team assessments would be around lack of operational capability for an airport, either to onboard passengers or to allocate gates for aircrafts or to allow cargo to function seamlessly at an airport. So these are some of the adversary emulations that as an airport we do look at. Then of course, I mean, while not cyber, as a stakeholder, like you know, some of the panel members have mentioned, we are an ecosystem of ecosystems. When you as a passenger decide I'm going to take a flight from Bangalore to Delhi, what you're doing is you're engaging multiple stakeholders through this journey. Everybody from the Airport Authority of India, who manages the ATC and everything, the airport operator who allows you to enter the terminal and go through the various, all of our downstream partners who have systems over there, the CISF, the airlines, all of them. So the thing is that an impact to any one of these stakeholders, while it is an adversary emulation that we look at, we have to prepare for it. And in a previous panel discussion, I said, you know, out of the 3 things that we've learned from a very recent incident with a cybersecurity provider, one of the things that we learn, and as an industry we have to do, is probably sit back and do nothing because there's very little you can do. But in this case, if one of these stakeholders has a problem, what we have to do is see how we can manage it, to address the parts that we can manage. So as an example, in the airport, when this incident happened and people couldn't catch flights, as an airport operator, we couldn't do much because the airlines had their systems compromised where they depended on a third party. So in that kind of a situation, what we could do is maybe give sandwiches to the passengers who showed up at the airport, made sure there was enough seating facilities, and facilitate the communication between the airlines and the passengers to ensure they at least knew what was happening and going on. Could we have done anything more? I failed to identify anything more, but this is the best we could do. So when we are in this kind of a connected ecosystem that we talk about, sometimes, the adversary emulation mitigation action is not necessarily always ours to manage. I think that's my 2 bits on the adversary emulation. Thank you.
Thank you. You would like to add something?
So the only, no, I think there are quite a few things that Jacxine has covered, right? The one thing I would definitely mention, emphasizing on my previous point on the interconnectedness. Now imagine if you just look at this, right? So Collins is one of the largest suppliers to Airbus. We provide aircrafts. We're just missing an airline representative here. We also we have the airports over here. So, so if you look at it, right, and we each one of us in our respective organizations, Applied Defense in Depth, have, red team mechanisms, have our blue teams, everything in place. One of the things when we think about, what could, thinking of it from threat actors' perspective, right? What could be the next level of, of tactics that they could think about? That if they can gain in this interconnectedness, there are various systems of ours also that are connected actually. And if anybody can gain an initial access to one system, navigate and cause a disruption across the ecosystem, those are the more advanced level of tactics I feel we should be worried about actually even more. Because for us, that kind of a disruption, I don't think we are ready to handle as an ecosystem. Individually, maybe, as an organization, we will handle, protect, defend, or even prevent a lot of these latest techniques actually. But then how do we think beyond actually? Because yes, obviously, the criminals are also equally smarter. They're also getting ahead of time. They're also, using the latest technologies to develop new adversary techniques and, emulations. But is the cybersecurity across our vendor product ecosystem, across organizations and enterprise, equally catching up with the same kind of investments, same kind of advancements, same kind of research as well? That is the biggest question for us actually today to be, collectively thinking about and talking about.
Thank you. Anything? Okay, fine. So I will go into the one more question which I would like to ask our panelists is, how can the aviation industry improve information sharing and collaborate between stakeholders, including airlines, airports, government agencies, to enhance security, privacy, and resiliency in the face of evolving threats? Suresh?
Yeah, I can take that question, sir. I mean, this is a macro level question. Like I said, I definitely do see in the last few years, rather than individual excellence, we have understood that, like Joyce just said, that we are the Collins is one of the biggest suppliers to Airbus. We supply to Airbus, we supply to Boeing. So there is no single platform which is made by one entity. We also talked about reverse globalization. We are going back towards local, but it's easy said than done. Today, any product that we look at comprises of systems which is supplied, which is integrated with components across the world. So I think forums like this, there is a general awareness which is building up, and we are looking at more, again, like I said, not only software layer security, hardware layer security, we are beginning to talk about product security. We are talking about product security, we are talking about system integration, concepts like digital product lifecycle is coming in, where we are going to have a single digital thread right from the design, requirement gathering, the manufacturing, right up to obsolescence management. We are talking about the digital thread. We also talk about digital twin. All these are going to be measures which will catch vulnerabilities in the complete cycle. The vulnerability is not only when the product is in operation, like Air Marshal Baduri had said, we will have to tackle it right from the design. Having said that, the ecosystem is the country, and I'm rightly so, though we are far behind, but the right ecosystem which is required is awareness through councils like this, bottom up, getting awareness spread on systems right from the college education level. It's not only people who got experience in the systems, right from your engineering education, having a concept of, I won't put it in a derogatory manner. There has been a question mark on our quality consciousness. We also need to have product security embedded along with quality consciousness right from formal education and throughout our complete cycle of product development across industries.
One of the things, I think part of the question was also about how can we improve this, the information sharing. I think, like I said, I stand by, as a consumer, we are very greedy. Why am I sharing information is the question. I think if it is to the benefit of uplifting ourselves and the sector and the industry, civil aviation as a whole, it makes benefit, then it has. Because what I think everybody, a lot of the organizations today, we have our security operations center, we have all of that, we have threat intelligence feeds, but are we sharing threat intel back? Do we want to do that? How can we incentivize this is the question, so that it makes it better for everybody. One of the avenues that has been suggested, and I've discussed about that in other places, is going to be anonymity. Can I share information? I'm happy to share information so long as I'm not identified as the person who shared the information, because it could be detrimental to me or my reputation. If I'm a publicly traded company, it will be detrimental to my economic value for the company and all. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is sharing it with regulators and others. Is there a benefit in that? Now, and this is akin to our own personal lives, our children will be more willing to share something that they do wrong if they feel that our immediate reaction is not shouting or beating them. So the same way, I think it's very natural that if the industries are sharing information, it should not be used as let's say, a means for punitive action. If there is a lack of effort, if there is a lack of diligence, then yes, please hold us to those high standards, but not with the intention of punitive this thing. I think if we take that off the table a bit, for this thing, I think the information sharing will grow and it will benefit us as an industry. So that's my 2 cents on improving the information sharing.
Thank you, Jacxine. I think that is a very important point, and that reminds me, we used to have a problem in the Air Force when we were there regarding flight safety. So what happens is there are a lot of minor incidents which keep happening. Do you want to report it or not? Because these minor incidents are trends to a major accident is going to happen. So we had to have a drive that each and every minor incident is reported. As you rightly said, there was no punitive action on that. But since we have closed the organization, we knew who was doing it and where it happened. But like he said, we can retain anonymity in these things so that each minor incident, whosoever airline or a airport or the system, if it is reported, the other person is aware before it happens to them. We learn lessons and not repeat it. So that is very important. Can we evolve a system like that? And we all know that a lot of small incidents are not reported. I'm sure it happens in the airport or airlines. Please put it on the carpet. As you rightly said, if it leaks out to the media, it'll be in the prime time. And thereafter, the next day, the share prices will drop like a Hindenburg report. So that is the problem. But how do we make it confidential? And at least the people who are in the system, in the industry, they are trust each other and ensure that it happens. And also the domains in terms of collaboration, then we'll give you opportunity after that to add value to it and give your suggestions. And also, are there forums like DSCI where people interact and share information, informally at least? So that helps. So these are the things I think we should take forward and put up maybe as a takeaway from here. And now we'd like to open the panel for any questions from the participants in the audience. Yeah, please, you've got a mic there.
By Mr. Fernandez. And fortunately, this is a civil aviation domain, and I'm not going to represent the uniform that I actually don. It's a general question. It's for all of us at every sphere of life. It's just that I got this opportunity at this civil aviation sub system. It's about the introduction of DPDP 23 within the Indian context as a GDPR extension. Now, there are data which is getting exchanged as an individual. All of us are doing it at all times. So as an industry, are we actually building up a data fiduciary versus the data principal accounts when there are multiple agencies involved? Like I share almost everything with the airline. It gets shared with probably the airport. Now, if there is a breach, or if tomorrow, as as data principal, I want to have some sort of erasure or whatever, I mean, I want to understand how the data is being used. Whom should I, address it to, or is it still lacking in a country like India?
I'll clarify a couple of points. Airlines don't share your data with us. Not your name, not your phone number. All we get is the booking PNR as an airport. So that's the only thing we get. Now with DigiYatra, I did tell you what happens is that when you upload your verifiable credentials, or as the DigiYatra Foundation calls it, VC, along with plans, we get that into a secure system which is held only for 24 hours. But yes, now the answer to the other part of the question, with DPDP coming in, all organizations are, and if they are not, I'd be very surprised, but all of us are gearing up for the adherence to that. We are setting up those processes, those, for me, I think, and I will not speak on behalf of the panel, I will let everybody, I believe that setting up the accountability and the process is going to be slightly more easier, because we know exactly, the government will tell us exactly what we need to do. So setting up that process and writing the SOPs for that is going to be easier. But gearing up and implementing these in our systems is going to be difficult. You asked a very pertinent question, the right to forget. If I believe I need to be forgotten, the challenge is not the process which I will write as an organization, and I'm not talking about the airport. As an organization, I'll write the process that you will go into all the systems that has your PII, and you will delete it, and you will create a verifiable, let's say, asset which will be able to be demonstrated to you as the data principal that it's been done. Imagine doing it, the first question and the problem for the organization is going, where all is your data? Is it only on the systems that I recorded it on, or did somebody take an export in an Excel file and it's lying in his laptop? So that is going to be the technological challenge that comes with these kind of things, but it has to happen because compliance has to be achieved. So I'm sure we will have, and this has already spawned, I mean, all you have to do is just look around. You are at the forum at DSCI, they have an amazing startup ecosystem, half of which are all around data security, data discoverability, and all of that. So it has spawned a whole new startup ecosystem for doing exactly what the DPDP is supposed to do. So I'm very hopeful about that, and I think we will be able to achieve that compliance.
If I can add, sir, may I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and to my limited understanding, this is a gray area. Data governance and data management is a gray area. Again, relating to what the panelists on the stage, Collins supplies an equipment to Airbus. and the equipment flies on Airbus, who owns the data that is generated? Does Collins, or is the Airbus, or the airline, or the airport where it's landing? You have a data breach in a cloud server which is there in France. Does the data privacy law of that country apply, or the owner of the data, or from the where the data has originated? So these are gray areas. There's a lot of scope. Again, information interchange, sharing, and policy for data governance. There's a lot to be achieved, but this has to be done collectively across all domains, not only the aerospace sector. This is a gray area which requires a lot of work. And I think there's a lot of work going on in that, but we are still far from standardizing it across. I think one of the speakers said, who owns which part in the space? Who owns data? Who's got the right and ownership to modify, alter, delete, and view data is a question mark as on date.
So the only thing I'll add is it's a sad thing that we are too late to the party in having a Privacy Act. But it's also the positive side to it is we have learnings from nations that have implemented it. We have to see how DPDPA will be implemented in India. But if you look at how data breaches have been assessed, companies have been assessed that have had large data breaches, including the largest tech companies of the world, and how they've been penalized and everything, right? There are learnings from it actually, and I think India will definitely take those learnings. Jacxine said one thing, implementing it on paper is very simple. Putting a process in place, putting a governance model in place, everything is simple. But when it comes to real world, when personal data is breached, first of all, it's important that that personal data may be in many sources to identify which source caused the breach. And then in that chain of custody of whoever's handled that personal data, where did the miss happen? Who had the security, who didn't have the right security controls implemented? Who allowed for vulnerabilities or didn't have the right detection, protection mechanisms, etc. A lot is scrutinized typically in assessing data breaches before an accountability is declared of where the breach originated or who's accountable for that and who needs to be fined or penalized, etc. So there are learnings from it, from how other nations have implemented. So hopefully we will also evolve and get there.
There's a screen in front of me which is in red, says time's up. So we can't take any more questions, and it says escape to exit. So I decided to press escape. So, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank my esteemed panelists, to Jacxine, Joyce, and Suresh. I think we had a very excellent and a productive session, and thanks to three of you for making it happen. And I hand you to Bhupesh.
Thank you, sir. What a great discussion we witnessed. You spoke about the role civil aviation is playing, overall perspective. Jacxine spoke about the challenges of the airport, spoke about DigiYatra, balance between security and civil aviation. He talked about data privacy, spoke about anonymity, and specifically his perspectives about DPDP Act. Joy spoke about the interconnected networks across sectors, supply chain challenges, being a critical sector, what are the challenges in the aviation industry, and specific, we should look about the holistic perspective when we look at security. Dr. Suresh spoke about IoTs, he spoke about interconnectivity, he spoke about security at hardware. So I think a lot of great discussions happened, and I would like to thank all the panelists. I would like to invite Air Marshal Vikram on the stage to hand over the token of gift so that we have arranged for all the panelists.